What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Therapy on Two Wheels. Today we're going to be talking about, if you're a new motorcycle rider, how do you get started? Let's jump in. So I put together this list of 10 tips for you as a new motorcycle rider. If you're just beginning and maybe you haven't even bought your first bike yet, you're just wondering how you can get started into the world of motorcycling, I put together these 10 tips, just kind of help you understand what you need to do to get to that point in terms of courses, in terms of licensing, getting your first bike, what you should do once you get your first bike, kind of stepping you through that first month or so of processes that you could go through. And the first thing that you should do is sign up for an MSF course. Now, you can go directly to the DMV, just take the test, and if you pass, you're going to get your motorcycle endorsement on your driver's license if you already have a driver's license. But what I would suggest is if you're completely new to motorcycling, you haven't been riding on the road illegally for years, but maybe this is the first time that you're going to be hopping on a motorcycle, go take one of those MSF courses. Those things are meant to help you understand how to operate a motorcycle, how to be safe on it, so that when you do get out onto the road, you're as safe as possible. Now, for the MSF courses, you can do this. Usually they have quite a few in your local area. So just search, do a Google search for MSF course, and you should see some options popping up. When I took mine, it was in Las Vegas, and they did have them at the College of Southern Nevada for around, I think it was about $130 for the entire course. And that was a 2-day course that you took. I think it was full 8 hours each day. So go take one of those courses. It's going to teach you the mechanics of a bike in terms of how to operate it, how to shift, how to brake, how to just lean on the bike, how to do U-turns, how to turn from a stop, how to go over objects in the road, how to emergency brake. There's a lot of different things that it's going to teach you. Motorcycling is not just about hopping on a bike and going straight and shifting up and shifting down. There's a lot more to it that you need to understand. So for that reason, I would always suggest going to an MSF course first before you even hop on a motorcycle. Now, the second thing that I would suggest is getting quality gear. For the MSF course, you don't necessarily need anything besides a helmet and gloves. You can just wear a long sleeve shirt. You can wear whatever pants that you want to. It can be jeans. They don't really care too much about gear besides the helmet and the gloves. But I would suggest spending at least somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for decent quality gear. And there's two reasons for that. The first reason being is that if you get really cheap gear, you can probably get away with getting a helmet, boots, gloves, pants, jacket for $300 on the really cheap end of everything. But you're going to want to upgrade your gear pretty soon, and you're just going to be wasting that money. It's going to be $300 to $400 wasted, because then you're going to go out and spend $1,000 plus on your second set of gear. So I would suggest you really only need one set. Just depending on where you're riding, you might need like a summer jacket and a winter jacket, but for the most part you can wear the same jeans all year round. I have, like today, it's a little bit cooler. I have kind of a I think it's like the axial underpants for cold weather. So I just put those on under my jeans whenever it dips below about 60 degrees. So you don't need to get a whole full list of gear for every single riding condition, but at least whatever you're starting in. If you're starting in summer, get a summer jacket. If you're going to be starting in winter, get a winter jacket. But spend probably somewhere between $200 to $300 on a jacket that's decent quality, that you might need to pay extra if it doesn't come with the armor in it. That might be something separately that you're going to have to purchase on top of the jacket. For the pants, I always suggest riding jeans. They're usually lined with some type of material, whether it's Kevlar, Cordura, that is going to make it much more abrasion resistant. So if you do go down, especially in a slide, like a low side, it's not just going to tear up your skin right off your body. As soon as you hit the ground, it is going to provide you a decent amount of protection. So those are going to cost usually somewhere around $200, maybe $250. And then a pair of gloves, you can get a good decent pair of gloves for between $50 and $100. Your helmet, you don't need to spend too much on your helmet at first. The higher end helmets, yes, they're going to be more comfortable, they're going to look nicer, they're going to feel better, they're going to have less wind noise in the helmet. But in terms of just general protection, you can get a decent quality helmet for 150 bucks. Like my first helmet was the Scorpion EXO R420 for around $150, and it was fairly quiet. Mine that I bought was a little bit too small, so it did pinch my head a little bit. I have a little bit more of the long oval shape head, and that one's more intermediate mobile. So for me, I went and bought this LS2, which again is about a $150 helmet that fits me much better for my head shape, and it is very comfortable, fairly quiet. You can tell I'm doing the audio here just from within my helmet with the microphone. You don't need a $800 Shoei for your first helmet. Go out and get something that's going to be comfortable, use it for a year or two, then you can look to upgrade to a better quality helmet. But in terms of safety and protection, there's not too much of a difference between the lower end and the higher end models, as long as they have the certifications, whether it's the ECE certified or if it's the Snell certified. You know, both of those certifications are really good. You know, there's slight differences between them. You don't necessarily just want a helmet that has DOT certification. That's kind of the bare minimum of what you'd want in a helmet, but I would suggest getting something that either has ECE or Snell or both, and somewhere in that $150 to $200 price range. And in terms of boots, you're probably going to be paying about $100 to $200 for those as well for a decent pair. You do not want to just go out in riding shoes. If you ever drop a bike on your ankle, you're going to crush it. You know, most of these bikes are somewhere between 400 and 600 pounds. Your beginner bikes might be closer to 300, but still, if you drop the bike on your leg, you're going to crush your foot, you're going to crush your ankle. It's not going to feel good. So get a decent quality pair of boots. Do not just use tennis shoes when you're riding around. Not highly suggested. So the third thing that I would suggest is start researching the bikes that you want before you even go take that MSF course. Kind of know getting into it, do you like more of the sport bike look or feel? Do you like more of the cruiser look and feel? It just depends a lot on you personally, how you're going to be riding, where you're going to be riding. So for instance, I'm going up here today into Idlewild. It's a mountain town. I'm going on a bunch of different curvy roads. I love these naked bikes for that particular purpose. Has more of an upright position for me. I'm on a BMW F800R right now. Plenty of power to get me in these types of speeds on these types of roads, and has more better ergonomics for me personally. I do not particularly like sport bikes where I'm all hunched over. It's just not comfortable for longer rides. I'm going to be going on about a 3-hour ride today. Most of those super sports, 3 hours is a long time for a ride, especially at my size and body shape. So start looking at those bikes, kind of understand what you like, because once you get into that MSF course, you're going to have a few bikes potentially to choose from, whether it's going to be more of a sport bike or naked bike, maybe a Ninja 300 or Ninja 250, or it could be more of a Rebel 250 or something like that. It just depends on you personally, what you like in terms of looks, feel, sound of the bike. They're all very, very different in terms of the styling and the ergonomics of how you're going to be riding them. So just understand, hey, I might want this type of bike. Just start researching them. You know, look up a bunch of different YouTube videos on the type of bikes that you're interested in, and there's usually a lot of great information that people are going to call out in terms of whether or not it will work for you. And then you can always go to a dealership and you can test ride them. I don't suggest getting a brand new bike for your first bike for two reasons. One of them, if it's an expensive bike, you're probably gonna have to finance it, especially if you're younger. And second, you're probably gonna drop it. And if you drop your bike, that price to try to resell it is gonna go down significantly. So I always suggest getting a used bike for your first bike. And not generally looking at new, but you can go to a dealership and you can ride them and test ride them, or if you're going to be buying them off of OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace or something like that, always test ride it first before you just hand the person cash and ride off with it. So make sure it works for you first. And that was the fourth suggestion that I had for you, is test out those bikes. Make sure it is going to work for you personally. You know, there's some bikes that I've hopped on that just felt way too small. I'm 6'2", so I'm a little bit taller rider, kind of than the average person that's going to be riding motorcycles. So some bikes just don't fit me. They're just too small. My legs feel too cramped up. I'm too hunched over. And the same thing if you're a shorter rider. If you're only 5'2", you're probably not going to be hopping on something that has a 34 or 35 inch seat height like my KLR 650. For somebody that's 5'2", you're gonna have a very, very tough time managing coming to a stop and putting your foot down. It's possible, but I would not suggest that type of height on a bike for a beginner rider that's shorter. So go test out those bikes, see what feels comfortable for you, make sure it's going to work in terms of the amount of power that you need. You know, you might not want to get a 125 Honda Grom if you're going to need to be riding on the highway or the freeways at 70, 80 miles per hour, because it's not even going to go that fast. So go test out those bikes, see what's going to work best for you. The fifth suggestion that I have for you is to practice, and practice some more, especially right after that MSF course. Don't go out and try to think that you're going to go on a 10-hour ride the day after your MSF course, right after you pick up your first bike. It's not going to happen. You're not going to feel comfortable. You know, you're only going 20 to 25 miles per hour in the MSF course for the most part, and trying to go get up to highway speeds, you know, the next day, you're probably going to be a little bit fearful. It's going to be a little bit scary for you. So take your time, practice going at those slower speeds until you feel comfortable getting up to a little bit higher speeds. It took me probably about 2 weeks of just riding around my neighborhood at 20, 25 miles per hour, shifting up, shifting down, braking, just getting comfortable with the ergonomics of the bike and the handle, everything on the handlebars, knowing where everything is. So I don't have to think as much once I did get out onto the actual road outside of the neighborhood. And then those second 2 weeks, I went out, probably only went to about 45, 50 miles per hour, just outside of my neighborhood, wouldn't go too far away, just on streets that I knew as well. And then at about a month was the first time that I hopped onto the freeway and bumped it up to, you know, 70 to 80 miles per hour. But I progressively practiced all of those things getting up to that point and getting up to those speeds. And don't stop practicing as well, especially when you do get a new bike. Go out and learn how to do figure eights and U-turns and get comfortable, because a lot of these bikes are going to have very different ergonomics, and just because you can ride one motorcycle doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same as the next one that you're going to be hopping on. So I do suggest that you practice as much as you can, especially after you finish the MSF course. The sixth thing that I would suggest for you is avoiding group rides when you're first starting to ride. The group ride mentality can get a little bit hectic unless you're riding with people that you know, maybe they're a little bit older, a little more mature. They're not looking to bomb down a freeway going 150 miles per hour on their R6. Maybe they understand that you're a newer rider. They're going to take it a little bit slower. They're going to help you progress into a more experienced rider. Those are the people that you can probably go riding with. But I would not just go look on Meetup and find, or Facebook and find a random group to ride with, because they're probably a lot more experienced than you. They're probably not going to be as forgiving if you're starting to fall behind or you're going slower than they are. I would just suggest maybe finding one or two people that you could ride with that are going to help you progress into a more experienced rider, let you know what you're doing wrong, help you fix it so that you can practice and continue to get better and be safer. But don't just go sign up for a random group ride and show up and expect to not see anybody get into an accident with 150 people on a group ride. The seventh thing I have here as a suggestion is to stay within your comfort zone. I mentioned that I took a little while to progress up to the point where, you know, even a month to get onto the freeway. You don't need to go very quickly right after you get your bike. You can take baby steps to get to that point. You'll eventually get to the point where you're riding in any conditions on any roads at any speed, but you're not going to be doing that the first week outside of getting your motorcycle license. So take your time within your comfort zone. That goes to those group rides as well. If you find that you get to a group ride and they're riding way faster than you're comfortable going, just drop back, or you can drop out to the side. You can go on to a different ride yourself. You don't have to stay with that group just because you started with them. You can leave at any point in time if you don't feel comfortable. If you feel like, hey, they're going way too fast, I cannot keep up with these people, just stop, pull over, and you know, you can turn back around if it's a long ride and you don't want to go the whole way. Just know that you do not have to continue the entire time on those group rides if you do not feel comfortable doing so. The eighth thing that I have for you is understanding your local laws and regulations. Every state, you know, even between different counties, is going to be a little bit different in terms of their laws of what you can and can't do on a motorcycle. So for instance, I'm in California. In California, as well as a handful of other states, lane filtering, lane splitting is legal, and I do it all the time just because it saves me a lot of time, especially in Southern California here, sitting in a lot of traffic. But most states, I think if there's over 40 of them, you still cannot do any type of lane splitting or filtering on a motorcycle. You'll get a ticket for it if you do get caught. I know there's some states where it's kind of still a gray area where they don't really care too much. It's not put into law whether it's illegal or legal. But for those ones that have specifically outlawed it, You know, I know in Texas, for instance, just a year ago in September 2023, they put into the specific law that you can not lane filter or lane split, that it is specifically illegal. So just understand what those regulations are, what you can and can't do. That way you're not getting a $300 or $400 ticket for doing something stupid. The 9th tip that I have for you is to prep for your rides. So before you go out on a ride, especially if it is going to be a longer ride and you're a newer rider, make sure that you're doing all your checks on your bike. You should be doing those anyways, pretty much every time that you ride, but check your tires, check your brakes, check your lights, make sure everything is working properly, make sure you're lubing up your chain if you do have a chain driven bike. You want to go through all those things so that you're not getting stuck on the side of the road halfway through a 5-hour ride, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere or somewhere that doesn't have cell service. Just make sure you're going through all those checks and you're making sure that your bike is safe to ride. There has been a few times where I came out and my tire pressure for some reason was 10 psi lower than the a week ago when I checked it the past weekend that I went riding. So make sure you're doing those checks, and it's going to save you a headache of possibly breaking down or having issues where you're going to have to pull over on the side of the road and possibly stuck there for hours. And the next thing that I'll mention too is to plan your rides. So if you are going to be going on a longer ride, say a 5-6 hour ride, this is just a month after you've gotten your license, I would look at the different routes, the different roads, especially if you're not comfortable going at freeway speeds at 70-80 miles per hour. Maybe look at routes, if it's a shorter ride, that are only going up to 50 or 60. And you can see that. You can just look on Google Maps, you can do a street view, and you can actually see what the speed limit signs look like. I did that a couple times when I was first starting out, to understand, like, hey, I'm not going to get myself stuck on a 70 mile per hour road when the fastest I've gone is 45 and I just don't feel comfortable at that speed. You can also see what the road looks like, the road conditions. There's some roads that I've been on, specifically when I was driving from Las Vegas down to Southern California, down to San Diego. There was a road that I went on that was absolutely horrible with potholes everywhere. I was having to swing my bike back and forth every couple of seconds to avoid all these giant potholes in the road. It just wasn't a maintained road, and probably hadn't been fixed in 30-40 years since it had been put down. So you can do those types of preparation for your ride and planning out what your route looks like, plan out where you're going to stop for gas, understand how much gas or kind of what your miles per gallon on your bike is, what's your gas tank size, so you can have a general idea of when you need to pull over for gas. You definitely don't want to be stuck with no gas on the side of the road, because there could be some areas where there's 50 miles between gas stations, and if you're halfway in between there and your gas light comes on and your bike only has a 20-mile reserve, you're going to be stuck out in the middle of nowhere with no gas. So do a lot of preparation, do a lot of that planning ahead of time, and it will save you a lot of those headaches as you're riding in the future. So that's going to do it for my list of 10 things that I would suggest as a newer rider to get you into motorcycling, get you started, get you out on the road and riding safely. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment in the comments below. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next one.